change.
It's kind of a philosophical thing.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those things where, when you start embarking on a fitness and nutrition program and you have all these grand illusions of all these things you're going to accomplish, right? And then you really, you start off but you really don't have what it takes to go the distance and finish what you're doing. And that's how people fail and like their New Year's resolutions and whatnot and all these different goals that people set that are too high. And, they were never ready to change. They were never willing to do what was required in the first place. So the first thing you got to ask yourself before you even set a goal like that is, are you ready and willing to actually go the distance and do what's required? Because if you're not going to make it. Because, fitness, they always say is a journey, not a destination, right? And so if you don't have the readiness, if you're not willing and ready to actually make the changes in your lifestyle and your nutrition and your fitness and make it part of a long-term commitment, you're not going to be able to achieve your goal or sustain it long-term. So one of the things I always do with people is give them a readiness to change questionnaire. And you ask yourself a bunch of questions, that are relative to, are you willing to go the distance? Are you willing to do what it takes? And you got to kind of make a contract with yourself that you're going to stick with it no matter what. Because there's going to be bumps in the road, there's going to be bumpy times, and there's going to be hardship, and there's going to be, a lot of suffering. And, when you're getting rid of all these foods that you used to love, and you're cutting out all this stuff, and you're changing your sleeping habits, and you're drinking more water, and you're exercising, you got to be willing to go the distance. And so the first thing you got to ask yourself, do you have the mental fortitude to do what's required to accomplish the mission? And, that's really relative to your mind state. And that's why the mental part of things is so important, because if you don't have what it takes and, if your head isn't straight and in the game, you're not going to be ready to change, you're not going to go the distance, and ultimately you'll fail. So be ready to change when you set a goal for yourself. Be willing to go the distance and do what's required. And that's pretty much what that stands for, that readiness to change thing.
Well, I think that, in my opinion, I think that's, if not, definitely would rank up there as, if not, the most important, one of the most important things, because that willingness to do that, because you can't do anything if you don't have that willingness, like I said, to want to change.
Yeah, and most people, they're really, they have these goals, they have things they want to accomplish, but they don't really understand what it's going to take to get there in the long term, the commitment and the sacrifice. And so, after a while, they realize, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought, and I'm not going to make it, and a lot of people tap out if they have a bad day. You got to be ready to face the obstacles, and you got to be willing to overcome them and stick it out for the long term. And that's all, part of the reasons that I do mindset training. Your mindset and the willingness to change and the readiness to change is it's huge. And it is, I rank it the number one priority as far as, how people used to say, like, it's 80% nutrition, 20% fitness. Well, I say it's, 80% mindset, and all the rest of the nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, all the other things fits into that 20%. So, that's the kind of stuff you got to look at. Are you ready to go the distance? Do you have the mental fortitude to do what's required? And, that's really the first thing that has to be conquered. You've got to be able to do that, and you've got to be able to tell yourself, hey, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm going to do this. I'm going to set small, attainable goals that are realistic, and it's going to be challenging, but I'm going to be able to accomplish it and stuff like that. If you don't, you're setting unrealistic parameters for yourself, and if you create a self-fulfilling prophecy, you're going to, ultimately you're going to achieve it, right, and you're going to fail. And but that mindset is really the key, and the readiness to change has got to be the number one thing you have to sit down and really kind of have a self-talk. Are you really, really determined to do this? Are you going to do this at all costs, no matter what? And the answer for most people is they really weren't. They thought they were, but wow, it's a lot harder than they thought. And so, ask yourself when you're starting to put a challenge and goal in front of you, are you going to go the distance? Are you going to do what's required? And are you going to be able to just not mentally falter before you even give it a chance? Because as soon as you hit an obstacle, if you tap out, it's all over.
One of the interesting things about that too is that I hear, as a participant, more people say what you just said, where they put those conditions.
Yeah.
They sit there and say like, well, I'll do that, but I'm not going to give up this. I'm not going to give up my chocolate ice cream, or I'm not, I'll do that, but I'm not going to do and they put these, conditions.
Yeah. If you do that, you're not going to make it, because you've got to be willing to do this, to make the sacrifices. And most people, once they do put those conditions on themselves, if you're talking about, I'm going to keep this sugary content, I'm going to keep this high sodium content, I'm going to do this and that, your chances of success drop dramatically, and of course, that all right there shows that you're not willing, you're not ready and willing to do what's required. And, right there, that's pretty much a guaranteed defeatist attitude when you think about it.
I think so, absolutely. Well, let's, this next question is very interesting to me, because, I think over the years I've seen this so much, and what it is it okay to eat the same foods over and over again? And, the reason I think that I'm really interested in that is you see so many people, that say I'm on a cottage cheese diet or something like that, or that all I eat is red meat, or I only eat meat,
yeah.
Or I don't eat any, or I only eat soy products or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of things people do is they get into, they set new habits, right? Because, of course, you're trying to break old habits when you're doing any kind of change. You obviously have to break down the bad stuff that isn't working, and you have to start doing the stuff that does work. Or, you could say the bad stuff versus the good stuff, or the less than optimal things, for more optimal things. But one of those things is people get into, once they start eating what I call the phase where you put down the Twinkie and you pick up the apple, and then people think, oh, I'm good, I've made this big change, and now I can just eat these certain foods that I like. And what happens is you develop this new list of foods that you kind of get used to, like some people like certain types of meals, and they kind of stick to it, and the next thing you know, they're eating the same thing day after day, month after month, right? And what happens is you isolate the benefit, even if it's really good food, like some people like certain types of salads or whatever their go-to meal is. And once you get this new habit set, of course, every time you develop a new habit, whether it be good or bad, it's going to stick with you for a while. It's hard to break. And so one of the things you got to think of is, what are you missing out on by limiting yourself to one type of food? Like say, for example, say all you ate was, chicken, or anything, any kind of food, like cottage cheese or Greek yogurt or whatever, like you like granola bars. Or if you pick any topic, even if it's a healthy food, and you limit yourself to that and you just eat the same thing repetitively, which is put you in a comfort zone, a new comfort zone, right? And even if it's really good food, super healthy, it's still not a good thing, because what happens is, each food, whether it's good or bad, has a nutritional profile. It's got stuff in it. And it's got so much of certain stuff, and it doesn't have more or less of other things. So in the grand scheme of things, you need to be getting the right amount of the right stuff at the right time. And so when you limit yourself to certain foods, what happens is you're missing out on all the things that particular food doesn't have, because all your foods don't have everything, It might have a lot of good stuff, a lot of vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, good dose of protein or whatever, but if it doesn't have a complete spectrum of stuff that you need to stay healthy, you're going to be missing out on key nutrients that could down the road, lead to a deficiency. And that's, even though you're eating healthy food, you could actually be setting yourself up for failure long term. So, the recommended answer that I give people is you want a variety. You want the rainbow colors, right? All the vegetables and fruits, as many as you can, as many as you like, from a total variety. You want as many different protein sources, as many different good fat sources, and that's why I teach, like when I gave you guys a nutrition class, I teach, to write food lists for protein, fats, and carbs with all the different foods that you like in each category. And you have to continue to expand that list based on, when you come across something new that you like. So the goal is to make each list longer and longer and longer with more healthy foods. So that way you can pick across the spectrum, and you pick your protein, fat, and carb to make a meal. You have complete variety. You get the full spectrum of all the macronutrients, the micronutrients, and for people that don't know what that means, the macronutrients is protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Micronutrients is your vitamins, minerals, your trace minerals, and all the antioxidants and all the other good things that are in foods, on a smaller level, like vitamin level. So, and then, but if you miss out, and that's one of the problems with vegetarians and the vegan kind of stuff, or any of these diets that has to do with cutting something out. Once you eliminate certain things, the thing I just tell people is, what are you doing to replace it? Because the bottom line is you have to replace whatever you're missing. And that's why, like, the people that say, I'm going to go plant-based, I'm going to eat plant-based nutrition, that's all well and fine. I tell people, I don't care how you do it, but you need protein, fat, and carbs, and you need a full spectrum of your micronutrients, your vitamins, minerals, and your antioxidants, right? You need the full spectrum, and you need to be drinking enough water. As long as you do that, whether you're plant-based, whether you're paleo, whether you're, whatever kind of diet plan you're on, it doesn't matter as long as you're getting what you need. And so when you don't get what you need, then you start, setting things up for failure down the road where you could get a deficiency going on. And of course, magnesium, zinc, selenium, calcium, iron, all these things, you can't afford, especially as you get older, to have these kind of things like dropping low. Because you're going to notice serious impacts on your health across the board if that happens. So, I tell people the rainbow colors for the fruit and vegetables, pick as many different protein sources that you like, and as many different good fats, and just continuously eat a variety of foods off the list of things that you like. And if you do that, that's sustainable because it's all food that you like, right? So don't get stuck on one, like tuna salad. Tuna and chopped up celeries with some homemade mayonnaise. I eat that on some crackers, and that's all I eat every day. And I can make that real quick, and then that covers me. I know a lot of people can just make the same meal over and over and over again.
I don't think a lot of people do that.
Yeah, and because it's a new creature comfort, it's a new comfort zone thing, and it's it's bad news in the long run. Even if it's good food, that means you're getting good stuff, but you're only getting so much of it. You got to have the full spectrum of the whole thing, and that's the key point. You want to make sure. And so, what could you do if you just adamantly wasn't going to do anything other than these one meals? You'd have to make up the difference in either supplements or some other way. You'd have to take more vitamins, or you'd have to take whatever you're missing. And first off, you'd have to know what you were missing, right? Because most people just don't have any clue. You got to do a little research in your food if you're going to start playing these games where you're cutting stuff out. That's why vegetarians and vegans, they have potential problems if they don't do the research and all the stuff, because there's a lot of good stuff in meat that people just don't understand. And, when you start cutting out huge main protein sources like, beef and chicken and pork, well, that's fine if that's what you want to do for whatever reason, but, are you making up all the stuff? Are you getting the B12? Are you getting the B vitamins? Are you getting the calcium, the iron, the zinc, the selenium, all the stuff you need, the copper, all the stuff that you need, so many micrograms and milligrams and all these different, the recommended daily allowance and all that, the upper limits. And you get to look at all that nutrition stuff and all the vitamin stuff, and there's a lot to it. So don't cut yourself short and end up with some type of nutritional deficiency because you only want to eat one thing because it's easy. It's not about being easy, it's about doing the right thing so you reach your goal long term. And it's got to be sustainable. You got to be able to do it forever. Diets with an expiration date, the 2-week plan, the 90-day plan, that stuff ain't going to work because what are you going to do on the first day after the second week and the plan's over? That's when everybody just goes back down the rabbit hole, So, variety is the key, and making sure you're getting a full spectrum of all the nutrients that you need to be healthy. So, however you want to do that, that's up to the individual, but I just tell you, hey, there's a consequence for everything you do or fail to do, right? So.
Let me ask you this, we're moving in, we're not moving in, we're there. We sure temper out there in Georgia into the summer.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, when the summer, not San Francisco brings the heat.
Yeah.
And here, like a lot of other places in our country, it brings, to say it brings the heat is an understatement.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the most important things I think people miss on the heat, or think about in the heat is, water, getting that water.
Yeah.
And that's
pretty huge.
That's pretty huge. That's and it's really the only thing you hear about, water.
Water.
So so let me ask you this: is water enough in the heat?
So that's the thing. Everybody tells everybody make sure you're drinking water. Make sure you're drinking water. Number one, yeah, you need water, obviously, but you also need electrolytes, and the electrolyte, your electrolyte balance, how much electrolytes you have versus what you're losing, is what you got to really manage, especially in the heat. And water alone, won't cut the mustard if you're really out there doing stuff in hot weather. And it's deceiving too because, it could even be if you're just standing out there. Let me tell you, I went to, Abby had her field day on Monday, and I was out there with her mom watching Abby play all the little games and stuff, and she she got pretty tore up by the heat right off the bat because, she had been drinking water, but she didn't have any sodium or sugar or potassium or anything like that. And once you go into that mode, the water, that's only part of the equation. You've got to have that electrolyte mix. And then as soon as you get, so when in doubt, you need you want basically some sugar, some sodium, and some potassium. And your typical sports drink, not an energy drink per se, but a sports drink, that's what those were actually designed to do. And that's to provide that electrolyte balance, that mix.
Yeah, it's interesting. And, of course, mine was very basic, rudimentary training. But in the training, when I got in basic training in the military,
yeah,
the only injury, and I was a real, go-getter, jump, how high, sort of kind of thing.
Right.
And I loved it and was thin and in good shape and stuff like that. And the only serious injury that I had in basic training is I had heat stroke. Not that.
Oh wow.
And
yeah.
And again, I guess the thing about that is too, to recognize, it's just like what you said, like with Abby, is I was, 18, 19 years old. And, Pat will tell you, it's hard to see now, but I was in really, really good physical shape. I could run 10 miles and have an ounce of fat on me. And
absolutely.
I was in martial arts and did all those kind of things like that.
Yeah.
And so you would think, that I could, and I got out there and was in, I think I told you, I was in the pit, sawdust pit, doing pugilistic sticks.
Right.
And it was just really hot. And our training officer was not there. We were practicing, and our training officer would have never let this happen. But I kept. We were saying, stand there as long as you can.
Right.
There, and I went through 3 or 4 matches, and I was about on my 5th match, and I won that. Was just us, and then our sergeant came on, our training sergeant came out, and we left, and one of the medics walked up to me and looked at me. And I started feeling really strange. He went, "You don't look too good." And then, the next thing I remember, I'm up at the hospital, the Army hospital, in a big vat of water with ice in it, and I'm being cooled down, and I feel like somebody beat me with a baseball bat. And I said, "Well, what happened?" They said, "You had heat stroke."
Was that during cadet time?
No, that was actually when I had come back, and I was in the reserve, and I got out.
Yeah, because they fire people for that now.
Well, you know what? And actually, I got in trouble for that. I got in trouble for that. And, significant trouble for that because, we had been told not to do anything, and we were supposed to be resting and stuff like that. We were typical 18, 19, 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I've always said, I've always admired in my brief period of time in the military, the instructors were very, very professional about that. I mean, they made sure that we were hydrated. They made sure that everybody was looking. Now, my father, God rest his soul, who went to Paris Island boot camp, Marine Corps boot camp in 1947, said that it was rather different then.
Wow.
Yeah, he said that they literally pulled his wild leader brought him together and stuff and was not kidding when he said, "The Marine Corps has allowed me a 10% casualty rate, which means that 2 of you can die."
Yeah.
But, I think they take that very, very serious, and as it should be. And so.
Well, that's a pretty huge point because that's in the military today. The whole thing is that's all leadership driven, and if you let soldiers go down, you let people under your charge go down for heat injuries and stuff like that because you weren't monitoring their hydration, or you force too much hydration. Forced hydration was the other extreme that happened in the military, where you take a whole group of guys and tell them, "All right, tip up your 2-quart canteen until it's empty," and whoever didn't do it got smoked. So it was kind of counterproductive all the way across the board. But those are the old Army games that we played, and the modern world tells you that that's super unhealthy, and it's just not good stuff. But the whole thing is when you're out there, water alone, if you drink too much of it, if you don't drink enough water, you run the risk of heat injury. If you drink too much water too fast, then you run the risk of hyponatremia, which is flushing out your electrolytes, and so that's not good. And then, in between that, you got to keep thinking, to manage your water intake, you also need to manage your electrolytes. So you'll see during any kind of activity out in the heat, or if you're just out in the heat for a long time in general, that's when you're going to want to use something like a sports drink to keep that electrolyte level and your hydration level topped off. You don't want too much, you don't want too little, but you want to be sipping that stuff continuously in small quantities throughout the entire time. And that way you don't take in too much or too little. You just have a constant, steady, little flow of electrolytes and fluids coming in, and that way you'll continuously maintain that electrolyte balance and you won't go down. Because when my daughter Abby, she got basically a mild case of the heat getting to her, and she got nauseated.
I should say, by the way, I did not have heat stroke, I had heat exhaustion.
Heat exhaustion, yeah. Heat stroke, yeah, that's pretty extreme. But, once Abby had she was feeling kind of rough, and, she was getting nauseated, didn't feel good. And that's because, and especially in children, their electrolytes and their blood sugar stuff goes up and down real quick. So once you're out in the heat and the humidity and that electrolyte starts dipping and the blood sugar starts dipping because you're super active, then you got to start looking at, that's when that sports drinks come in. So as soon as she had a drink of something with some sugar and some sodium in it, she obviously came right back to life and she was just good to go again. So that's how quickly you can recover from it. But as soon as you start feeling that, you need to go and find something. Now, in the military, the old school way we did it was out of your ration packet, you took the beverage base powder, like the Kool-Aid packet, took your sugar packet and your salt packet, and you mixed it together in your canteen of water. And that was your like your field expedient Powerade, you know.
Bug juice.
Yeah, and so that's but that's what that would actually that solved the problem and kept you going until you could get oral rehydration packets are issued now and all kind of other stuff.
Well, like all of our reviewers over there, we're working on getting our set put together. We're kind of in the process of getting that together. We're a little bit distant on the way today, but
It's all right. It's still working.
We're still working on it, and we'll be adding. We've got our YouTube account set up. Did a practice last night. We got everything except we got to get our something with our volume, but we are on Periscope now also, and we will be on YouTube.
Wow.
Starting next week, and on Facebook. And we actually have a professional set that we used to have that we can move down here. We have that over here. Exactly what that'd be exciting to see that next week on that. But the last question we have here for today is probably as old as the general what is it, General Sue's
Oh yeah, Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu question.
The Art of War, yeah.
On the Art of War, so going back for years of practically everything from athletics to martial arts to just daily existence.
Yeah.
Breathing properly, how the heck do we do it?
Yeah, breathing.
Do we breathe long?
You know, most people actually do. And one of the common things like you see when you're looking at breathing techniques, your chest rises and falls. Like when you're in CPR class, you know, they always check you to look, listen, and feel, and you're looking for that breathe in, you're listening, and you're watching for the chest to rise and fall. And the problem is people chest breathe, and you should be diaphragm breathing. You know, you got to go back to your old yoga class and your old martial art class. And so there is a, optimal way to breathe, and there's a less than optimal way to breathe, and most people don't do it right. Then of course you get the mouth breathers, right? Okay, so just so you know, if you didn't, you should be breathing through your nose, exhale through your mouth, right? Not the other way around. Your nose acts as a filter, and then you want to breathe down and fill up your entire lungs with air, so that means down in your diaphragm. Your belly should rise and fall when you breathe, not your chest. And so, because if you only breathe and your upper chest is rising and falling, that just means you're using only like the top quarter of your lung. You're not filling up the whole thing. So you need more air, more oxygen. So you got to breathe. So they talk about diaphragm breathing in yoga and whatnot in martial arts, and your energy point is down around your belly button. And so you want to inflate the balloon in your lower belly and make your belly expand with the full lungs, and then you want to blow the air out. So that makes all the difference in the world. And if you're not doing that, you should give it a try, because it works wonders for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's something certainly. Stuff coming up. Do we have a seminar coming up?
We will. Was going to do one this weekend, but I'm going to opt out on that this weekend to do some other sales events, and probably a couple weeks after that, we're looking at a stress management meditation kind of class.
Yeah, we're going to be coming up here shortly. We're going to possibly be there this next weekend. We're going to be having some sales up at the Lee County Flea Market.
Yeah, Lee County Flea Market.
All kind of stuff.
That'll be exciting.
Survival equipment.
Yeah, survival.
Health stuff, everything, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. Full spectrum.
Full spectrum of stuff. And so that's, Ms. Pallas actually wants to say something.
We may have to put that off until next weekend, unless we want to bring our children and our grandchildren with us.
Well, yeah. Okay, well, we'll talk about that later on that. But now that's what we're planning on, but we'll go from there. And we're looking forward to, every Tuesday you can hear, and we're going to get a little bit more religious on that from 1 to the Dempsey Fitness Hour, which we're going to be expanding on some too. And we now have the Dempsey Fitness Center here north, I guess.
Yeah, the Columbus branch.
Columbus branch, 5820 Moon Road.
Yeah, and
so as he has a studio here, a training studio. It's all completely outfitted out, and you can get in touch with Eric Dempsey for Dempsey Fitness. He has about as much experience on the hands-on physical fitness and weight loss and training and health on that. And then he has he's certified weight loss, certified nutritionist. He's worked in the United States Army, retired as Sergeant Ranger. And he is pretty soon they want to tell him that there's no more degrees that he can get from health. He's an educated man.
Yeah.
So he's
Death by school.
yes, he's an empiricist on that. So he doesn't just talk the walk and walk the walk. He writes and debates about the walk. And
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that.
GI Bill veteran. Yeah.
That's it on that. So I appreciate that, and we'll look forward to having him again next week on there. So I'm going to say hello and goodbye to everybody out there, and we'll see you again next week. And appreciate Eric your time, and we hope to see y'all soon. And on the Radio Show's Kind of Country Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope show, and more to come. So God bless you, and I think I'm going to leave this out with something here that is appropriate on that. So thanks, Eric, and we'll see y'all soon.